You're watching A News. I'm Bakhtiar Sanov, and let's take a look at the top stories. 1 year since the Washington agreements put Azerbaijan and Armenia on a new path toward peace. Volodymyr Zelenskyy has arrived in Serbia for his first official visit, with security, economic ties and European integration on the agenda. And concerns are growing over depleted U.S. missile stockpiles after heavy use in recent conflicts as Washington looks to accelerate weapons production. One year ago, on August the 8th, Azerbaijan and Armenia reached a milestone in their efforts to end decades of conflict. At the White House in Washington, D.C., President Ilham Aliyev and Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan signed a joint declaration that outlined a path towards peace. The meeting, hosted by U.S. President Donald Trump, marked the culmination of years of negotiations. 12 months on, we'll look back at how the process began, what has been achieved since, and what comes next.
The White House, August 8, 2025. Images that quickly made headlines around the world. President Ilham Aliyev and Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan met in Washington under the mediation of US President Donald Trump. By the end of the day, the two leaders had signed the Washington Declaration, committing Azerbaijan and Armenia to move towards a comprehensive peace agreement. 1 year later, the meeting is widely seen as one of the defining moments in the diplomatic history of the South Caucasus. But the road to Washington began more than 3 years earlier. Azerbaijan proposed a peace agreement with Armenia based on 5 principles grounded in international law.
As you may know, Azerbaijan has made a proposal consisting of 5 principles to normalize relations between the two countries, and the Armenian side welcomed this proposal.
The principles included mutual recognition of sovereignty and territorial integrity, the absence of territorial claims, the rejection of force, border delimitation, and the opening of transport links. Negotiations officially began later that year. After more than 2 years of talks, Azerbaijan and Armenia announced in March 2025 that they had agreed the text of a peace agreement. 5 months later, the process reached its most significant milestone in Washington.
I'm sure that Armenia and Azerbaijan will find courage and responsibility to reconcile, and also the people will reconcile. We will turn the page of standoff, confrontation and bloodshed, and provide bright and safe future for our children. So I'm very happy because today we're writing the great new history.
Alongside the Washington Declaration, the foreign ministers initialed the agreed text of the peace agreement, committing both countries to move towards its formal signing and ratification. The Washington agreements extended beyond the political declaration itself. Azerbaijan and Armenia jointly requested the closure of the OSCE Minsk process, bringing to an end a mediation format that had existed for more than 3 decades. Another major outcome was the Trump Route for International Peace and Prosperity, or TRIP, a connectivity project aimed at linking mainland Azerbaijan to its Nakhchivan exclave through Armenia. TRIP could also become part of the Middle Corridor, strengthening transport and trade connections between Central Asia and Europe. The first practical changes followed within months. In October 2025, Azerbaijan lifted restrictions on cargo transit to Armenia. Since then, more than 110,000 tons of cargo have crossed Azerbaijani territory. Azerbaijan has also exported more than 20,000 tons of petroleum products directly to Armenia. The United States has remained actively engaged in the process. In February this year, Vice President J.D. Vance visited both Armenia and Azerbaijan. In Baku, Vance and President Aliyev signed the Azerbaijan-US Charter on Strategic Partnership. It developed the process launched at the White House and covered connectivity, trade, energy, technology, artificial intelligence, and security.
And for these 6 months, we already live in peace. We are learning to live in peace, and we're very grateful to the United States government for this great contribution.
Look at that. 1 year after Washington, the documents signed there continue to shape discussions about the future of the South Caucasus, with regional stability and economic connectivity remaining central to the peace agenda.
Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev and Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan held a landmark phone call on Saturday, marking 1 year since the Washington Peace Summit. Reflecting major regional progress since initiating the peace agreement, the leaders highlighted expanding trade ties, including direct exports of Azerbaijani petroleum products to Armenia and cross-border transit cargo. They also reviewed implementation plans for the TRIP transit corridor, underscoring that economic integration is now securing lasting stability in the South Caucasus. A News Deputy Editor-in-Chief Orkan Amashov shared his perspective on the Washington summit and the peace processes between Azerbaijan and Armenia, looking specifically at how it shapes the South Caucasus and what could come next 1 year after the historic meeting.
If if sides are very successful, it's going to be a massive game changer for the region. It's not just about Azerbaijan's two separate parts being connected via Armenia, but also this particular connectivity element is a vital ingredient of the wider puzzle of the middle corridor. So you need to get access to Central Asia. You can't get access to Central Asia via Georgia only, because you need to go through Azerbaijan. So Trump Route for International Peace and Prosperity does not just connect two parts of Azerbaijan, also connects Armenia's infrastructure to the entire South Caucasus. So it's going to be absolutely transformative. Also, naturally, connectivity means prosperity. That particular entity called TRIP is owned 74% by United States and 26% by Armenian state. Armenian sovereignty and ownership is intact, but the management is going to rest with largely with that entity. It will connect Armenia's southern territory, which is sort of isolated from the rest of the country. If you want to travel from Yerevan to Mehri, you're going to face massive challenge. Therefore, going through Nakhchivan to Mehri will be much easier. The region will be more interconnected. House of Caucasus will be established. Armenia will reduce its dependency on Russia. Turkish-Armenian normalization will happen. Entire region will change. So back to your question, it's going to be massively transformative.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has arrived in Serbia for his first visit to the Balkan country. Zelenskyy is due to meet President Alexander Vučić and other officials, with talks expected to cover economic and energy cooperation, security, and both countries' EU membership bids. Zelenskyy said the two sides would also discuss expanding bilateral economic ties. The visit comes as Serbia maintains close ties with Russia and relies on Moscow for natural gas. The European Union's Commissioner for Internal Affairs and Migration says the EU should use its leverage to strengthen its partnership with Morocco. The comments came as the European Parliament held an emergency meeting to discuss developments in Ceuta after more than 75,000 people crossed into the Spanish territory in northern Africa. William Denslow reports from Brussels.
In this extraordinary meeting at the European Parliament, we heard from the leader of the exclave of Ceuta, who said that up to 5,000 people were still residing in this Spanish territory that had crossed over from Morocco a few days ago. He said that while it is a huge alleviation and ease on burden resources after more than 70,000 people had returned back across the border, he says that it's still far from a return to normal. Now, at this meeting of the European Parliament, we also heard from Magnus Brunner giving the European Commission's perspective on what transpired and what to do to prevent such a crisis, as many in Europe have described this, from transpiring in the future. He said the fact that no people had transferred from Ceuta to the larger mainland Europe and into the Schengen zone that so many European member states had been concerned about. He said that that was a sign that the stress test, if you want to put it in those terms, had been a success. But he said there was certainly still room for improvement as far as the European Union is concerned. Now, what Brunner is suggesting, what the European Commission is suggesting, is a series of steps going forward. This includes bolstering early warning systems to potential flash points in the future along its external borders, to see better cooperation with non-EU members, to see a better targeting of smuggling networks, something that the EU has blamed this crisis very much on mafia-style gangs of human traffickers, as well as reinforcing the policy of returns. Now, Brunner added a little bit more detail in this meeting to lawmakers. He said that the European Union is ready to do more when it comes to assisting Spain, especially when it comes to EU agents to bolster its borders, but says it's still waiting for permission from Madrid to provide that. He also said on that issue of closer cooperation with third-party nations, including, and in particular in this instance with Morocco, he said that the EU should use all of its leverage at its proposal to deepen partnerships. This includes leverage when it comes to visas, when it comes to trade, developmental cooperation. So certainly the EU looks to be targeting these areas to prevent an episode like this from transpiring in the future. And certainly the message from local officials in Ceuta is that more needs to be done to give them more confidence that indeed its borders are secure. William Denslow, Frey News, Brussels.
And now we return to our top story for discussion. How significant was the Washington summit? What has changed over the past year? And what comes next for regional peace and connectivity? Joining us from Baku is Sultan Zahidov, a leading advisor at the Center of Analysis of International Relations. Mr. Zahidov, welcome to A News, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Mr. Zahidov, 1 year after the Washington summit, how would you assess its overall significance for the Azerbaijan-Armenia peace process?
Well, indeed, today marks a 1 year anniversary of the signing of the milestone agreement between Azerbaijan and Armenia in presence of the USA President Donald Trump. And I believe that agreement is significant in terms of number of aspects. First of all, it's significant in terms of furthering the peace process, in terms of forging stability and security in the entire Caucasus region, engulfed in conflicts and war for over decades. As you know, a vision was signed that time in Washington between Azerbaijan and Armenia, and with that peace, both countries became committed to furthering the between them. Other than that, members of the both countries, we know that initialed the agreed text of the peace treaty between Azerbaijan and Armenia, which is another important step. And then, of course, the joint call for the revocation of the OSCE and Minsk Group and its related institutions must be considered as another important step on the way of normalization and furthering peace. And then, of course, we should not be forgetting about the trip corridor, foundation of which was laid there, which is 42 kilometers corridor connecting the mainland Azerbaijan with its exclave Nakhchivan. And its significance should be considered not just in terms of connecting Azerbaijan with Nakhchivan, but also connecting the Central Asia to Europe, as it should be. It might be utilized as one of the branches of the middle corridor, of the greater middle corridor. So this is one important, let's say, significance of this, let's say, Washington Declaration. And then on the other hand, the meeting in Washington bears importance in terms of furthering the relationship between Azerbaijan and the United States as well. Because if you compare the Donald Trump period and the major American-Azerbaijan relations after him to power. Before, when Joe Biden was in power, the United States policies towards Caucasus was not quite, let's say, practical. They were not considering the realities on the ground. But as soon as Donald Trump came to power, they started to, let's say, give more attention to the region. They started to give, let's say, more emphasis on the importance of Azerbaijan in the region, on the indispensability of Azerbaijan in the region, as it's located in a very geographically in a very strategic position in the Caucasus. So with that respect, the Washington meeting must be characterized as a new page in the relations of Azerbaijan and the United States, as well as with that meeting, it was decided to establish a joint working group on the elaboration of the strategic charter of partnership between Azerbaijan and the United States, which was signed a couple of months in February 2026 when the Vice President J.D. Vance visited Azerbaijan. So since that time, a number of important, let's say, processes took place between Azerbaijan and the United States, which further, let's say, which facilitated the rapprochement, the further rapprochement between these two countries. Other than that, we should be also taking into consideration the fact that since the Washington Declaration was concluded, a number of important steps were executed in the sphere of normalization, in the sphere of peace between Azerbaijan and Armenia. We should be speaking about the lift on the ban of transit goods from Azerbaijan to Armenia. Since that time, through Azerbaijan, 6,000 tons of goods were, let's say, transferred to Armenia. That's also a milestone achievement. Other than that, the meetings of the representatives of the civilian societies of Azerbaijan and Armenia, those meetings took place, by the way, in Azerbaijan and also in Armenia, which is also crucial in terms of forging peace in the region. And of course, there are a number of challenges as well, but those challenges are not insurmountable. And the main one is, of course, is about the constitution of Armenia. And in order to sign the peace treaty, the only demand that Azerbaijan has is about the amendment to the constitution of Armenia, because in the preamble of Armenia there is a reference to the Armenian Independence Act, where there are territorial claims against Azerbaijan.
Sultan Zaidov, thank you very much for joining us from Baku and for sharing your analysis with us. We appreciate your time and insights on this important anniversary of the Washington Summit. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. France has seen record CO2 emissions so far this year because of the massive fires in the southwest of the country last month. Between January and early August, nearly 4 million tons of CO2 were emitted due to the forest fires, exceeding the previous records, Ross Cullen reports.
Well, it's been such a record-breaking year for fires here in France. A little bit earlier in the summer, we had the blaze in the Fontainebleau forest outside Paris. We also had that huge fire described as unprecedented and historic in the southwest of the country outside Bordeaux. There are currently blazes going on in many parts of the country, and all of this has contributed to that rise in CO2 emissions. Forest fires in France had already released 1.4 million tonnes of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere in the first 7 months of this year alone. That figure far exceeds the average in the previous 20 years. Now, carbon dioxide emissions are usually as a result of human output, industrial production, energy production, and commercial manufacturing as well. But with these huge blazes that we've seen nationwide, we are now also seeing a more complicated picture with those forest fires contributing to a record amount of CO2 emissions. Ross Cullen, A News, Paris.
US and Iranian leaders are signaling a potential end to the recent military conflict despite facing growing internal pressures. In Washington, President Donald Trump acknowledged military supply issues, while in Tehran, Iran's president is firmly defending a fragile June ceasefire.
President Donald Trump told reporters in Washington on Thursday he believes the war with Iran will end soon. He also publicly acknowledged that US armed forces are experiencing issues with weapon supplies. This follows reports that the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, privately warned the administration against further military escalation, specifically citing depleted stocks of air defense interceptors. Meanwhile, in Tehran, the Iranian government is defending the June memorandum that paused active hostilities. The conflict began earlier this year with US and Israeli strikes, including an attack that killed Iran's then Supreme Leader, Ali Khamenei. With his successor, Mojtaba Khamenei, out of public view due to security concerns, President Masoud Pezeshkian addressed the nation on state television, pushing back against domestic critics.
We did not start this war. We were in negotiations, but they kept inciting war. Given the situation as we moved forward, their calculation was that the country would collapse. The people of Iran stayed with us. Even those who had protests bit the bullet, and we were able to hold on until now. And now we will remain stronger and more powerful by the grace of God.
The June memorandum, brokered by Pakistan and Qatar, halted military action to allow for negotiations. However, talks have recently stalled over maritime security and freedom of navigation through the Strait of Hormuz, a critical route for global oil and gas exports. Washington and Tehran are now attempting to maintain the ceasefire framework amid ongoing disputes.
US intelligence is warning that Russian President Vladimir Putin could intentionally test NATO's red lines with a limited attack within the next few years. Assessments suggest Moscow might target an allied nation, likely in the Baltics or Poland, using small-scale incursions or cyber attacks. The goal would be to test NATO's Article 5 Mutual Defense Pact without sparking a full-scale war. The warning comes as the alliance faces a growing wave of hybrid threats, including a Russian explosive drone recently discovered at the German airport. The Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of the Congo has passed another grim milestone, with confirmed infections exceeding 4,000. Nearly half of those infected have died, as conflict delayed detection and shortages of vaccines and treatments complicate efforts to contain the disease.
The Democratic Republic of Congo has recorded more than 4,000 confirmed Ebola cases for the first time in the current outbreak. The country's Public Health Institute says 4,053 infections and 1,850 deaths have now been reported. Cases have been detected across 5 provinces: Ituri, North Kivu, South Kivu, Haut-Uele and Chopo. Research published in Science last month concluded that the outbreak may have begun in Ituri in January, or possibly even earlier. Health authorities are facing significant obstacles in bringing the outbreak under control. Delayed detection and overwhelmed surveillance systems have been compounded by military conflict and shortages of vaccines and treatments for the virus species involved. The outbreak is now the second largest Ebola epidemic on record. Only the 2014 to 2016 West African epidemic was larger, with more than 28,000 cases recorded across Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. For the DRC, containing the latest outbreak now depends on reaching affected communities and strengthening surveillance as health teams race to prevent further transmission.
Romania's Chamber of Commerce has proposed reviving the agri-energy project, potentially creating a route for Turkmen gas to reach Europe. Under the plan, gas would travel through Azerbaijan to Georgia before being liquefied and shipped across the Black Sea to Romania. It would then be regasified at Constanta and supplied through Romania's network to Hungary and other European markets. The proposal also includes closer cooperation between the ports of Constanta and Turkmenbashi, as Europe looks to strengthen energy links with the Caspian region. A powerful typhoon is sweeping across parts of East Asia, bringing strong winds and heavy rain and prompting authorities in Japan and China to step up emergency measures. Officials are warning of further disruption and potentially dangerous weather conditions in the coming days.
Typhoon Dolphin lashed Japan's southern Okinawa prefecture on Saturday, injuring 5 people and cutting power to around 14,000 buildings. The typhoon brought winds of up to 162 kilometers per hour, with stronger gusts, while airlines cancelled flights to Okinawa. 3 of those injured fell because of the strong winds, although none suffered serious injuries. Evacuation orders were issued earlier for nearly 260,000 people in Japan's Kagoshima and Okinawa prefectures, while car giant Toyota suspended work at 9 of its factories. Authorities have warned of flooding and further disruption as the storm moves through the region. In China, Zhejiang province raised its coastal typhoon alert to the highest level, suspended 162 passenger ferry routes and halted port operations. Authorities also stopped offshore construction as the storm approached. Dolphin is expected to make landfall between late Sunday and early Monday, most likely between Zhoushan in Zhejiang and Fuding in Fujian. Forecasters warn of torrential rain and strong winds, with parts of eastern Zhejiang potentially receiving more than 600 millimeters of rain. Rain and strong winds are expected to affect eastern China through August 12th.
A new security alignment is taking place in the Middle East. Pakistan, Saudi Arabia and Turkey have signed a trilateral defense pact committing to collective defense. It underscores closer military coordination as regional tensions continue to drive new strategic partnerships. Mariam Zia reports from Islamabad.
Pakistan, Saudi Arabia and Turkey have formalized closer defense ties by signing a joint agreement on Friday. The deal was signed following talks between Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. The three discussed regional security and bilateral cooperation in the Saudi city of Makkah. According to Pakistan's Foreign Office, the agreement is intended to strengthen collective deterrence against any act of aggression. It states that an armed act against any one of the three countries will be regarded as an act against them all. It also commits the partners to expand cooperation across all areas of defense. The trilateral agreement comes as the conflict involving the United States and Iran continues to reshape regional security. Pakistan's Foreign Office said it reflects the three countries' shared commitment to promoting peace, security and stability in the region and beyond. For Pakistan, the pact deepens defense ties with two long-standing strategic partners. It also underscores how regional powers are increasingly shaping their own security arrangements as instability continues to test the Middle East's traditional alliances. Mariam Zia, A News, Islamabad.
This concludes our news update for the hour. Thank you for your time and stay tuned to A News for more updates.